Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, and welcome to Black Press USA and NNPA's Fireside Chat. Today, it's all about politics. You need to be tuning in. Reach out to friends, family, and relatives and let them know they need to hear what we're going to be talking about. My special guest joining me, she is very familiar to our audience. Her name is Melanie Campbell, and she is with the Black Women's Roundtable and the convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. She's also the president of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. She's joining us from New Orleans, the Essence Music Festival. Welcome. I think we have you on mute.
Yeah, so sorry. So glad to be here. Yeah, it's like been 2 years since they were able to have it in person, and I appreciate you for bringing me on tonight. It's good vibes so far.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, there's a lot going on within the world, but you know, as there's a number of people there that are celebrating music and Black excellence. There's a serious issues taking place that has you and other people that are watching what's happening politically in this country, and you're talking about it. Let's first start off with today's announcement from the U.S. Supreme Court. They made two decisions, right? That really shaked up a lot of people. First of all, let's talk about the decision that they made for the border, right? It's a big blow to the Biden administration. Excuse me, I'm sorry, changing that back. It's a good thing for, I guess, the Biden administration because they wanted to lift the so-called Remain in Mexico, which basically was a Trump administration policy that basically people who are seeking asylum at the border under the Trump administration, you have to remain in Mexico. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court lifted that, which is something that the Biden administration wanted. So now people seeking asylum at the border can be in the U.S. during this process. Is that a good thing for the country?
I think the reality is that the former president used immigration as a political tool to air for the purposes of ginning up grievances and blaming folks who are just trying to many times escape violence, escape extreme poverty and other things, and used the border as his kind of backdrop for that. And I think the reality is to have a fair immigration system. It works, not as best as it should, but it works if you make sure that at the core of it, we are talking about human rights and having a humanitarian viewpoint when it comes to when folks need to escape countries. They're not leaving their country just because they want to get a job. They're leaving the country many times because of this escaping violence. As well. And so I think it's important that the administration is able to, as we know there's a need for immigration reform in the first place, but at least minimally to strip away some of the things that were done in the past administration only for political reasons and not for the purposes of making it better for this nation that is a nation of immigrants, right? The only natives here are the Native Americans who were here before. This is a nation that through immigration and of course for us, unfortunately for us, we came here on slave ships. So the reality about what immigration has been in this country is really, really important that they're able to have the power to change that rule.
Now, the second thing that has everyone talking is the decision as it pertains to the EPA's authority to regulate carbon emissions, kind of pulling back some of their powers with existing power plants. Can we talk about that and really why it's important, not only to Americans, but to African Americans as well? These policies, we need to understand and connect the dots.
Well, we are talking, I'm in New Orleans, right, Louisiana, where just down the road, something called Cancer Alley, because you have the fact that the Supreme Court, again, legislated from the bench and actually reversed the powers for the Environmental Protection Agency. So who is the EPA? Environmental Protection Agency, to be able to protect us so we can breathe. In the Black community, we are impacted grossly by asthma because you have so many things that are in our communities that are toxic. And so as I'm sitting down the road from at Cancer Alley, when I saw that, I'm like, are you really serious? But what we have is a Supreme Court that is reversing the kinds of laws and kinds of things that are done to make this country a better country, a more inclusive country. And they're really pushing us to the dark ages, to not just when it comes to African Americans, when it comes to voting rights, which is important, but a women's right to control our bodies. For anyone, go and then signaling that they're going to go after LGBTQ rights and privacy and what you do in your bedroom, and it just keeps rolling. And then here today, like you mentioned, now you can't even have the Environmental Protection Agency do what it needs to do in order to protect lives at the end of the day and to save this planet.
We talk about, there's so many things, and I know we have a short time with you because we actually pulled you out from a number of panels that you have that you're doing as the Essence Festival kicks off. But again, the things that you're going to be talking about, we'll speak about that as well. When it comes to the admissions, is there going to be a discussion? Is there a group within your organization that is working with lawmakers to see what they can do to change it? If it's not federally, at least state by state or county by county.
Well, one of the leaders of our Black Women's Roundtable lives in Georgia. Her name is Felicia Davis, and she also runs something called the HBCU Green Fund. She's one of the sisters who, when we didn't know what she was talking about, when she was talking about climate change, right? And what does that have to do with Black people? So she's one of the people who is a part of our leadership that I work with, along with others, that there are a lot of Black women and Black men who are in the leadership, if you will, of organizing around issues around the environment, climate change, environmental justice issues that impact us. And so I think, and one of the things I think that's going to be important for as we're in the midterm election, when we talk about our rights and freedoms are on the ballot, right? We also now talk about, now we have this issue about making sure that we're able to make sure that our government protects us so that we can, because it does affect quality of life and life expectancy when you are in an environment where you are exposed to toxic things like I'm blanking because I'm running too much, but the kinds of things that are the kinds of plants that are put in our communities, and dumps that are put in our communities. Because if you look at the numbers, and you'll see it's always in poor Black and brown communities. And so it's a big issue. And young people, I think, are going to pay attention to that as they are when it comes to a woman's right to control her body. But I think this is going to be an issue that's going to play out in the election as well. And we look and say, well, what can you do about it? Well, if you want to see more people put on the Supreme Court bench so that you can find some balance on the court, well, guess what? That's the Congress that has to do that. And so who's on the ballot in 22 on a federal level are the Congress people, the senators, your state congressional leaders. Yes, also on a state level. The other thing I didn't want to miss is that what you have are the laws that are being stripped away are sending it back to the states. Historically, for our community, states' rights has never been our friend. And so we are in a situation now that the Supreme Court are making the kind of decisions that are putting it back in the hands of governors and state legislatures who have already set up, were waiting for Roe v. Wade to be reversed so they could then, the fact that we're living in a moment now that a 12-year-old would have to carry a baby if she's raped, are we serious? So it's on our watch that we have to fight back in 2022. And the opportunity to do that is in the 22 midterm election cycle. I'm nonpartisan, so I can't say who to tell you to vote for, but vote for the people who believe in your rights and freedoms and the opportunity and justice. They're on the ballot in 2022. And
now,
we
Ms.
have to do
Campbell,
what we need to do.
I mentioned that you're in New Orleans for the Essence Festival, and you're not there for the music. You're there to really talk about the things we're talking about. Can we go through right now, because we have a few more minutes with you, to talk about the panels and the topics that you're going to be addressing. And I believe there's also, it's going to be streamed. So if people want to hear from you and other people talking about these issues, they can hear both sides. But would you tell us a little bit more about what you're going to be talking about this week at the Essence Festival?
And I am here to party too now, right?
Oh, okay.
Party with a
Okay.
purpose. Party with a purpose, right? Okay, like Tom Jones used to tell us, party with a purpose, right?
Party with a purpose.
But in between all of that, one that's at nighttime. But during the day, when the sun is up, we have to be organizing. And so we're hosting, partner with several groups. One is Oxfam America. So in the morning we have a major panel that we're doing with Black women leaders to focus on economic justice issues, as well as in the afternoon we have a dynamic group of sisters. We're going to be organizing and strategizing around what we need to do in the 2022 midterm election and fight for our rights. We are launching a summer of activism and organizing when it comes to our voting rights, our reproductive rights, and also our freedom to choose how who you love. They haven't done it yet, but they're saying it. Clarence Thomas sent a signal. Well, we need to do something about LGBTQ rights as well. And so there's a lot at stake, and we can't sleep it, because if we sleep it, we're going to wake up in something like an apartheid state.
Now, you're doing a lot with voter registration as well, right?
Yeah, we do it. We are launching our Unity Black Voter Empowerment campaign, and we're in several states across the country. But what we're doing over the summer also is meeting folks where they are. Folks are hurting out here with the economy, kind of when it comes to gas prices and other things. We have to also meet people where they are. So a lot of our state leaders are doing things like gas giveaways, hosting things that help people with their groceries. We also have to deal with that, because that's what we hear from folks. Like, even when you're nonpartisan, people want you just showing up at the door talking about it's time to vote again, when they're sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to get to work or how they're going to feed their kids. So we're also dealing with that in that summer of activism, but also organizing on a state level, because what the Supreme Court has done, many of these cases now go back to the states, and they're either passed or attempting to pass laws that are going to make it harder for one, if you need reproductive health support like abortion, then and the fact that people say, oh, well, I don't believe in that. Well, that's okay. You don't believe it in for yourself, but you don't have a right to put that on someone else. And that's what I try to say to folks. It's not about your faith. That's your faith. There are too many other things that happen when it comes to abortion, because people, it impacts people. Sometimes you have to do it because of the life of the mother. Or what are you saying? We're saying babies, if a little girl gets raped or impacted by incest, that they got to carry a child. Come on, right? You got doctors who are going to be afraid to do what they need to do to save someone's life, because they're afraid that they may end up being locked up. And the other piece of it is, if folks are charged, who do you think going to end up going to jail first? Who do you think, if they make these things, it's going to be black women, black women, poor folks are we the ones locked up. White women who have the means are going to still be able to go and get what they need. They'll fly to another country if they have to. And that's where the reality about what's happening. It is about life and death, and the ability to have the freedom to live in a way that you have opportunity. We're going way backwards, and not that everything's going to be solved in November. That's a pipe dream. But surely the way this is going, attack on our rights, is about changing this structure where we as Black people will have, we'll talk about their knee on all of our necks. And the sad part is, it's going to impact our young people, our children, our children's children. And those of us who are saying that we are leading, got to roll up our sleeves and make sure that we're on the streets. That's what I plan to do. I'm in Essence, but we're going to be on the streets all summer to make sure that we engage our community to own our power, especially our young people who are really the majority when it comes to voting, to use that power to fight back against these injustices we are facing right now.
And so, Melanie, listening to what you're saying, do you believe that you and others who support this will be able to make the connection of connecting the dots? Because oftentimes when people talk about galvanizing and getting people to the polls, it has to make sense. You just mentioned, a person may be thinking, how am I going to get enough money to put gas in the car, to get to work, and or food to feed my children? Do you believe that you're going to be able to make the connection where they can see the people that they elect on the county and state level, or ultimately now with many of these decisions happening in the court, the U.S. Supreme Court, will directly affect them?
And thank you for that. And I think that's why we say we have to meet people where they are. We have to do those things and help folks while they're struggling in this really some difficult time, and connect the dots to even what you're going through is tied to what's going to happen in the November election. In some cases, yes, it's global things that are happening, but it's also being able to hold corporations accountable who may be price gouging. We've heard and seen where you have grocery chains that are using an opportunity to raise prices when they don't have to. So you have to regulate that. So it does matter who gets elected, so that we can make some of the changes that to regulate some of this, so that we can control some of this that's unnecessarily being done. So folks make gross profits at the expense of just the average person just trying to get ahead.
Now, I said before, Melanie Campbell, that you are in New Orleans for the Essence Festival. There's a number of panels that you're on, and I believe they're streaming it. Is there a website that you can give us? Is it your website?
Yes, we will be live streaming. We're in New Orleans time, Louisiana time. So it is tomorrow from 9 Central Time to 2 o'clock. They can, in that time, we have several panels where we talk about economic justice issues, the midterm election, and what we need to do to fight back on a federal level, but also right there in your community, what you can do. And hear from some dynamic Black women from across generations. We got some sisters, we've got a couple of young sisters who are here from Howard, who helped lead the protests on Howard's campus, as one from Clark Atlanta University. We got folks from the reproductive justice community, our Black Women's Roundtable leaders from several states from across the country. It's going to be folks who are in business. It's a very eclectic group of sisters who represent a lot of areas, and we're gonna share that because we want to get it out of the room, right? So you can tune in and hear from those sisters who will be talking solutions, but also kind of laying it down on what are happening on the ground and what's happening in DC and what we must do about it. And we have to stand up and fight back together.
Now, where can they go to see the stream tomorrow?
I keep forgetting to say that. I'm so sorry. They can go to at NCBCP, at NCBC on Facebook live, and they can tune in. And it'll also be on our Black Women's Roundtable as well. And so if you go to NCBCP at NCBCP or Black Women's Roundtable, you'll be able to watch it live stream.
All right, so I'm going to have you say it for me one more time slow, so people who are writing and trying to reach over there, they can get what they need, because I want to make sure.
So if you go to Facebook, if you want to watch us from 9 a.m. Central Time to 2 p.m. Central Time, so 9 to 2, we have several panels, and they can go to Facebook at I'm just going to spell out NCBCP, or say National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, long name, or Black Women's Roundtable's Facebook page, and you will be able to see and tune in and make comments along the way over those few hours. And it's just, we believe that we wouldn't come to Essence without making sure that we have some opportunity to strategize and organize while we're here.
Again, Melanie Campbell, Black Women's Roundtable convener and the president of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. I have to thank you for pulling away from your activities and speaking at engagements there at Essence in New Orleans. I appreciate it. I look forward to an update. And again, tomorrow, people get an opportunity to hear from you and a number of guests that you're bringing in from around the country to talk about the issues that we discussed a little bit tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for getting the word out, what's going on, and speaking truth to power through the NNPA. Thank you all so much.
You are so welcome. Well, last week I told you guys that we talked about that the NNPA and the Black Press of America, we held our annual conference in New Orleans. So we just missed Essence, right? By a couple of days. We received a message from the Vice President Kamala Harris, and here it is.
Congratulations and happy 195th anniversary to the NNPA, to Dr. Chavis, to all of the leaders. As we know, our Black press has been the voice, the trusted voice of the community. It has been the trusted voice for the nation in terms of speaking of and about with knowledge and with respect what is happening in the community. The Black press will tell the stories that need to be told and often by other press outlets is not being told, but directly impacts so many people. And so I applaud the Black press for all that you do. I know that through the course of the last 2 years, it has been a real effort because so many of our Black newspapers and publications are also family-owned businesses, small businesses, and the challenges that come, and in particular in the last 2 years that have come with that. So I just want to thank you for your endurance, for your strength, but your voice is so incredibly important, especially when I think about this moment in the history of our nation. 195 years celebrating an anniversary. And now more than ever, in a very different way, we are dealing with so much misinformation, inaccurate information, the dissemination of hate speech, and so much that is incorrect and wrong. There are people who want to deny history, who don't want to teach history, which reinforces, as much as it ever has been important, reinforces the importance of our Black press. So happy anniversary.
What a wonderful way to kick off our next segment. And by the way, as I mentioned before, last week the NNPA held their annual event. There was the NNPA Fund Messenger Awards. If you want to get more information, you can simply, and actually see everything, you can go to nnpa-events.com and see more information and see all of the awards and see the panel discussions. It's a great resource for a lot of information, not just what just happened last week, but on a weekly or daily basis with the over 195 publishers that are a part of this amazing organization. So now I want to introduce you to my next guest. His name is Derrick Hawley, and he's the founder of the Energy Poverty Prevention. He's joining us tonight. Welcome to the show, Derrick.
Taylor, thanks for having me this evening.
Well, listen, I just have to start off by saying, let's talk a little bit about your mission. You are the founder of the Energy Poverty Prevention. What's it all about?
So I've had the opportunity to go before Congress and give witness testimony 5 times. And from one of my testimonies, Representative Kevin Hern introduced the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act, HR 4266. So to advance the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act, HR 4266, we formed the Energy Poverty Prevention Project. And so what HR 4266, it does, it will ensure equal access to affordable and reliable energy for all U.S. citizens. The second thing is we already know that certain populations, vulnerable populations, low income, minority, rural, senior citizens, and Native Americans spend a higher proportionate amount of their income on their electric bill. So since we know that, we want to make sure that we mitigate this process and allow equal access, affordable energy to everyone. The third part of this bill is, before, much the way the EPA did today with their decision on climate change, before any regulations are passed, we need to have some type of means assessment to do an impact that will show the impact on a piece of legislation on these vulnerable populations. So if this bill was in place, we would not be experiencing this current energy crisis that's facing America today.
Okay, so I have to ask you in layman terms, right? For just the average person who's living paycheck to paycheck, right? And I even said it to my guests before. I think oftentimes when we have people that are politically connected and reading bills, and you're on Capitol Hill and you're meeting with lawmakers, sometimes the average American, it just goes over their head and they don't connect the dots. So explain to our viewers why this is important to African Americans. We understand, I mean, I do understand it's about um, creating resources that are affordable for everyone, right? But explain it to where they can understand how this HR 4266, did I say it right?
The HR 426, the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act. Well, see, a lot of times policy, before lawmakers implement policy, they need to think about how it's going to impact the people. Okay.
Okay.
And so what we're talking with this HR 4266, we're trying to prevent anything like this from happening ever again in this country, this energy crisis. And so what we're saying is, with the third part of this bill, before any policy, before any legislation is passed, let's do some type of impact assessment. Let's do a study. Let's see how this law, this regulation is going to, what kind of impact it's going to have on these communities in terms of jobs, in terms of their income levels, in terms of education, in terms of roads and bridges in those communities, and just how they're going to be able to sustain themselves after a piece of legislation has been passed. So that's why it's important that we look at things like the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act. And sometimes we have to cross party lines in order to get a piece of legislation passed. And that's actually what we're doing right here.
So hearing how you just broke it down, it seems like common sense. So why wouldn't you do an impact study before passing any type of legislation, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes, again, I'm trying to work across party lines, but we are so divided right now in this country. And a lot of times people won't vote anything. They only vote on party lines. And unfortunately, this piece of legislation, it might expose, okay, some of the practices, some of the policies that have been put in place already from this current administration.
So listen, I've never actually spoken to someone who, other than a politician, sorry, that, and you're not a politician. So I want to make that clear. You're not a politician. What is that like? Can you kind of go through what it's like to go before Congress and to speak? Because you really need to know your everything, right? That you're talking about. Dot your I's, cross your T's, underline sentences, right?
Absolutely. And I can share most of the time. Well, the 5 times that I've had to go before Congress, I've been in the minority. And so what that means is there might be 5 witnesses to 2 or 4 witnesses to me, just 1. And so, yes, you do have to have your ducks in order. You have to be able to understand and articulate what you're talking about. And more importantly, you can't go in there if your information is inaccurate or just giving out false information. And so a lot of times I have to do my research. I have to prepare my notes and my statement to make sure that it is in fact correct, because they will call you out if you're spewing false information.
I think we have some pictures, and maybe you can tell us what we're looking at and what you were doing at that particular time. And it may be the
Okay.
HR 4266 bill that you were on Congress. There we go. Okay.
I was actually in an event speaking about energy poverty. That was actually in, of all places, South Dakota.
Really? Was it well received?
It was very well received. Everywhere I go, when I start talking about energy poverty, the message is very well received, because when you start talking energy, first of all, energy poverty occurs when individuals and families are unable to afford basic heating, electric, and gas needs. Okay. And so many Americans right now are facing this right now, with gas prices, with inflation at 8.6% and gas prices at $5 a gallon. Energy poverty, some people are experiencing it for the first time. And so again, HR 426, this particular bill will help to eliminate what's going on right now in terms of our energy crisis. This particular picture right here, this is actually, I think this is the hearing that inspired the actual bill, the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act.
Now, how long are you sitting there? Because I know we've been watching a lot of things happening on the floor, in Congress, and seeing people there for hours. So, are you testifying for a long period of time, or sitting there for a long period of time answering questions?
The hearings are normally about 2 hours in length, and you typically have 5 minutes for
Oh,
your testimony. And so I have to actually prepare my testimony. And so you do read it, but you read and you speak it because you have to internalize it. And then from there, you take questions. And and again, if your information is not correct, is inaccurate information, you will get drilled on it. And so, like I said, I've had the opportunity to go before Congress 5 times now. So I am an experienced witness, and I know not to go in there giving out wrong information.
so what's this picture here?
Oh, that was from another hearing that was last summer. I think this was actually during COVID. So interesting enough, Congress was still having hearings during COVID. We were just doing them virtual. And so
Okay.
this particular hearing was before the Energy and Commerce Committee last summer.
So I want to add. Oh, here's another one here.
Just another opportunity while we're speaking about energy poverty. And a lot of times, one of the things, and I think your last guest, you talked about it with the EPA and environmental justice. And one of the things I've talked about before Congress is environmental justice. It would be prudent on everyone's part when speaking about environmental justice to also talk about energy poverty, because those same communities that are experiencing the environmental justice are the same communities that are experiencing energy poverty. So it's interesting. Okay, we should have the conversation and include both.
You may mention that for the first time, there are people that are probably kind of feeling the pinch because of what's happening with the gas prices. Do you in any way feel like what's happening now is allowing people to be more receptive to what you are trying to share and explain and get changes made to?
Absolutely, because I've been doing this. I've had this message. I've been talking about it for about 7 years now. And so energy, it's not a sexy topic. And most people don't even think about energy until you go to cut on your light switch and it's not working. Or now when you go to the gas pump and it's $5 a gallon. And so now this message of energy poverty is really resonating with people like, wow, I am experiencing poverty because I have to spend so much on my electricity bill, or I have to spend so much filling up my gas tank. And I can tell you this, since October of last year, my electric bill has more than doubled. And since, I guess, March of this year, as you know, even in March, gas had already gone up $1.30 over where it was last year. So a lot of people are experiencing this. It's been a gradual, but now it's to the point where, oh my God, it costs $100 to fill up a 17-gallon tank right now. And most Americans are feeling that.
So do you feel, Derrick, that this is something that was preventable?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe this crisis was self-inflicted. All right. And President Biden campaigned on shutting down the fossil fuel industry. That was his goal. And his first day of office, he went about doing that when he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, which was 85% complete. And it was approved under the Obama administration when he was vice president. But for whatever reason, he's beholden to these environmental groups and it's a very, very aggressive green agenda policy that we're just not ready for it here in America.
Now, we've had some offline conversations, right, about fossil fuels, and it's a really hot topic with you. You have a long history as it pertains to coal. Can we talk about that? And maybe you can break down. I actually saw a commercial not too long ago, and it was a gentleman standing somewhere and things started disappearing, and he was explaining fossil fuels. And I'm like, what? That's really? So
Yeah.
I see you smiling. So, right? So
Yeah, because I just think a lot of people don't understand where things come from. And how much fossil fuels plays in our life. Even I'll go back to coal, what you talked about. Yes, the reason why I'm so passionate about energy is because my grandfather was a black coal miner in Southwest Virginia. Okay. When I first graduated from college, I worked for Norfolk Southern Railways as a brakeman. And our job and responsibility was loading ships that transported coal all around the world. And so, yeah, I can tighten up the brakes on a train. I can I can hook up the air hoses. I know my signals with my lantern and all that kind of stuff. But the thing about it is people need to understand. And I ask myself all the time, even 2019, the United States became energy independent for the first time in 2019. And so what that means is we were actually producing more energy than we were using here at home. And so I cannot give all that credit and will not give all that credit to President Trump, because it was the Obama administration that started that. And so most people think that Democrats and the Obama administration was anti-fossil fuels. That is not true. In order for us to get to the point where we were in 2019, it started under the Obama administration. And so all we're asking right now, President Biden, is to at least go back to where we were, okay? Instead of shutting down in this huge war against fossil fuels and the complete fossil fuel industry, which he's trying to destroy right now. But to answer your questions, like you said, there are so many things that come from fossil fuels. Before it's fossil fuels, and then they turn into petrochemicals, and these petrochemicals make our cell phones, our television sets, all these electric vehicles that they're saying that we need to move to. Well, all that plastic in those cars, that comes from fossil fuels.
You know, the Keystone Pipeline, there has been, I think for a lot of people, they were oblivious to what the fight was over and why was, for example, people that supported the Biden administration's thoughts of shutting it down. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think people are saying, Biden is doing it because we need to conserve what we have. We don't want to lose everything. And if we start using it now, the way Americans consume things, we'll end up using up and we won't have anything. What are your thoughts?
The Keystone Pipeline was a pipeline that runs from Texas through, I think it was 8 states, all the way to Canada. Even Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who I'm not a fan of, said it was a gut punch to Canada when he shut down that pipeline, because it was going to transport that much natural gas to Canada and through these other states. So it was devastating. It was a devastating blow to the United States and to Canada. And so we need the resources that was coming through that pipeline. And again, that was just another attack on the fossil fuel industry, a very, very aggressive move to appease these environmental groups. But meanwhile, struggling Americans are looking like, why would you do something like that? And you look at your gas prices, you look at your electric bill, and it's a result of these policies that are coming out of Washington, D.C. right now.
So do you think that there is time to turn things around? Because I'm the person who believes once an industry gets their price to a certain price, you don't get going back to what we had a year or two ago. That's a thing of the past. It's just not going to happen, even if they're able to find ways to make the changes. It's just not going back. You've got shareholders and people that are now expecting this particular percentage point now.
Well, it's not going to happen overnight.
Okay.
And so our natural gas and petrol and all that kind of stuff, those are commodities. So you have to look at the futures. They're futures. So you have to look at policies right now that's going to impact this particular industry. And so as long as this administration have the restrictions and the regulations on the fossil fuel industry, we're going to be in this mess for a long time.
Now, you said, you were talking about the Biden administration and this Keystone Pipeline. The reason why you believe the administration is, shut it down was because of what? Was it bad for the communities? What was the reason why they don't believe it should be in operation?
I've had about, when I go before Congress and give witness testimony to various places, you have these environmental groups, these environmental activists, okay, who are so loud, okay, and it's about money. And anything in America, special interest controls it. And so these environmental groups are special interest groups, and they spend a lot of money to control the narrative. And so just like your guest was talking about climate change, okay, Taylor, before Congress, I've checked so many times. You can't find a white paper, a study, or any kind of research that would indicate climate change is an issue in the Black community, because it's not. We are worried about how to make it till tomorrow, okay? We're worried about getting shot by the police. Those are the issues. We're about crime. Those are the issues that concern the Black community. You can go into any Black barbershop, any hair salon, and your hair looks absolutely gorgeous. Okay, you can go to any salon, and I can tell you right now that they're not having a conversation about climate change, not in the Black community. And so this narrative that's being created that, oh my God, climate change, no, that is coming from someone else. And they're driving this narrative. And those are those special interest groups, those environmentalists who are pushing this message right now.
Now, do you believe in climate change? Do you
I
believe in
do.
it?
I do. And so climate change exists. And we, as humans, we all play a role in it. But the thing about it is we're not ready we just can't flip a switch and say, okay, we're going to do this. And what they did with this aggressive green agenda policy that the Biden administration has is exactly why we're experiencing high inflation right now at 8.6, the highest it's been in 40 years, and gas at $5 a gallon. And the thing about it, everything is centered around energy. When the price of energy is a fixed cost, when the price of energy goes up, everything goes up because it costs more to transport your goods to the grocery store. So now when you get to the grocery store, the price of the groceries are going up. And so who has to experience it? The end user, which is the consumer. When you go out to a restaurant, it costs more now to cook your food because natural gas is higher. Mm-hmm. Again, energy controls everything, which is why we're at 8.6 right now inflation rate in the United States.
Yeah, that's been the talk for the last week or two. So it's a really scary thought if you're really paying attention. So I have to ask you, since I spoke to my first guest about it, what are your thoughts about the U.S. Supreme Court's decision pulling some of the powers from the EPA as it pertains to controlling emissions in the country facilities right now that are in operation?
Well, the thing about it is the EPA, and I was listening to that part of the conversation. The EPA from 1970 to 2019, this is according to the EPA's website. I just pulled it while she was there. The six common pollutants has dropped from 1970 to 2019 by 77%. I testified before Congress that our air is the cleanest it's been in over 50 years. And that came from the Clean Air Act that was established in 1970. So it's a narrative that's being pushed that, oh my God, that air is this, and it's not really true. And especially because air is the cleanest it's been. And in the 1970 Clean Air Act established that to make sure that our air and water would be clean.
So my question to you is, I'm quite sure the air in New York versus the air in DC versus the air in Kansas would be different. So does the study look at all the areas? How do they?
It does look at all the areas. It looks at all the areas. And again, when you start talking about these pollutants, they were, like I said, 6%. Those pollutants dropped 77% while Americans drove more and the population increased. So again, we have to look at where and who's driving this narrative and what the purpose of it is.
So are you in support of what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on today?
On EPA, absolutely. Absolutely. Because what it says is similar to what HR 4266. And it says before Congress cannot pass any sweeping regulations that would overhaul an entire industry without getting some type of approval. Meaning I said Congress, that the EPA or the White House cannot have any type of sweeping overhaul without getting some kind of approval from Congress. Again, these policies that were put in place right now that are coming out of this administration, they weren't approved by Congress. They didn't go ask every American voter, okay, is it okay that we do this? If they did, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
So is it somewhat checks and balance? I mean, I guess and right now the way it's divided as this country is, and the way Congress is divided, it's going to be split between party lines, right? So will it be the Democrats supporting Biden and the Republicans reporting their side?
Absolutely. And so right now, as you know, the Dems control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So come November, I know it's going to be November elections are going to be hot, these midterms for sure. But from what the news is reporting, the Republicans will take back the House, sweeping it. They will take it back. And so a lot of legislation, a lot of things that have been put in place via executive order by President Biden will certainly be reversed, will probably be passed through legislation that will come out of the House and then be presented in the Senate. In fact, my HR 4266 bill, it's a bill in the House. We are now seeking a companion bill in the Senate. So you got to have a companion bill in the House and in the Senate, and then you bring those two bills together, make it a law, then we put it on the president's desk.
So do you think that the environment or energy will be a part of this election cycle?
Absolutely, I do. Because so many people are struggling right now with inflation and their price at the pump and their energy bill is coming in. Again, my electric bill is doubled too, and I guarantee you yours is probably doubled as well. That's the case for most Americans.
So if you had to, your wish of all wishes, right, for what you do, you're the founder of the Energy Poverty Prevention. What are you supporting as far as what you believe this country needs to do to help those close that gap when it comes to paying for their energy?
I think we have the solution to energy poverty, again, is sensible energy policy. Policy that does not harm the environment, but still allows us to generate and produce the energy that we need. And so, one of the things you hear people talk about is affordable, reliable energy. The United States has an abundance of affordable and reliable energy, natural resources right here. Yes, we do.
Really? Okay.
Second only to Russia. Okay.
Really?
Second only to Russia. And if my numbers might be off, but I think Russia has $75 trillion in natural resources, where the United States is around 52 trillion. And our natural resources are petroleum, natural gas, coal, and timber. Okay. What takes up Russia is because they have a lot more precious minerals. And we need those precious minerals for cell phones and other things that go into computer chips, these computer chips for cars. Now, we don't have as many precious minerals, which is why a lot of this stuff, Russia is still in control or still running things, because so much of the world needs the precious minerals and natural resources that Russia has.
So then Biden's right by saying, I really can't do much. It's because of Russia. What's happening,
No. He emboldened Russia when he shut down our natural gas, our oil, our production of our natural resources here in the United States. A lot of other countries who are now getting those resources from Russia was actually getting it from us. And so when he put restrictions on us here in our country in terms of our natural resources and being able to export them, again, in 2019, the United States became the #1 exporter of oil and natural gas to the world. We surpassed Saudi Arabia and Russia with that right there. Okay. But when the Biden came in and shifted with policy, now we're having to ask other people like Saudi Arabia and Argentina, can we produce more oil when we have it right here? That makes no sense. Again, it makes me ask, who is our president really emboldened to? Because he's certainly not emboldened to the United States and the citizens of this country, because if he was, he wouldn't have these restrictions on the fossil fuel industry that has caused so much pain in people's lives right now when it comes to energy.
But what do you say to those Biden supporters who are saying the U.S. has to be careful about exhausting their natural resources?
We have enough natural resources to last us for generations after generations after generations. So where is that again, that's a narrative that's being driven that we want to exhaust all of our natural resources. What about the rest of the world? Just it's okay for them to exhaust their natural resources to give them to us? I'm asking the question. It's rhetorical, but no, we're the second leading country in the world with natural resources. We've got plenty, and we won't be exhausted anytime soon.
So do you think it helps at all when states say, well, we're going to do the gas tax for 30 days? I mean, it's a Band-Aid. What do you think when they say
It's
that?
a Band-Aid, and so it's only for 30 days. And so I got gas today at $4.95 up in Silver Spring. And so that gas tax in Maryland, I think, what is it? They'll bring that down maybe $4.60 a gallon. Thank you. It'll help for 30 days, but it's again, I'll use your phrase. It's a Band-Aid to the problem. It's not a long-term fix at all. The long-term fix is again reversing policy in terms of what we're doing right now, and getting back to energy exploration here in the United States and producing our own energy as opposed to going to other places and having to ship it all the way over. And the thing about it is, I was just reading a stat the other day. If you go get natural gas from another country, you got to put it on a tanker and ship it thousands and thousands of miles across the ocean. So that's fuel consumption right there. So how is that? We're still burning fossil fuels. We're burning fossil fuels to bring us fossil fuels. It makes no sense when we can get the fossil fuels right here in the United States and not have to pay for shipping costs to send it across the ocean.
Derrick, do you think Republicans support your energy poverty prevention more so than Democrats? And I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying a majority.
I would say so. I was actually having a conversation with an individual prior to getting on this call, and we feel like we're going to get some bipartisan support with this because so many Americans are struggling right now with this crisis, and so it's going to be huge for us to get a couple of Dems to look at this particular bill.
So is there anything that you're aware of in regards to the Biden administration or Republicans in general that would support making some changes, especially seeing, I remember when a barrel of oil was $80 and now it's well over 100, which has got the price being what it is at the pumps for all of us across this country. In some places, I just heard, I think in Vegas, it was $7 now, $7 a gallon. Again, it just depends on what octane you get, but $7, that's a lot.
Yeah, I think the 7-Eleven right now is selling gas for $7.11. And so when it gets to that point, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And so in California, it was $8.05 a gallon. So something has to be done because interesting, as I talk about the gas, as I was saying earlier, I don't think it's going to get worse before it gets any better. There were some gas stations in New Jersey, Taylor, who have actually changed their pumps, okay, so that they can now register for double digits. So now they're expecting gas to be $10 a gallon. So again, we've got to put a stop to this, okay? And it's got to be bipartisan, okay? It needs to be, and I think it will be because so many people, so many elected officials, their constituents are struggling right now. And so now let's throw out this Democrat, this Republican thing. I need help. And so hopefully a bill like HR 4266, the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act, will bring some relief to a lot of Americans who are struggling right now.
Derrick, I hope that you're not predicting that Americans would have to wait until November to start seeing a dialogue that would start addressing the prices at the pump and the grocery store and other places.
Unfortunately, I am. I don't think there's,
really?
In fact, again, energy and this inflation will be at the top of the ballot for the midterm elections. And so there's no way you can downplay it. Too many people are struggling right now. Too many people are suffering.
So, Derrick, where can people find out more information about your energy poverty prevention?
Please log on to energypovertyprevention.org and energypovertyprevention.org. And at Energy Poverty Prevention, you can find out more about me. You can find out more about the bill, HR 4266, the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act. You can talk about, it talks about what energy poverty is, okay, and who experiences energy poverty. Again, energy poverty occurs when individuals and families are unable to afford basic heating, electric, and gasoline needs. And so many Americans right now are facing that today. On the other part of the website, we talk about what affordable energy looks like. What is affordable energy? And how do we get there? We talk about the need for fossil fuels, which includes natural gas, petroleum, and coal. And coal seems like such a bad word, okay? But the thing about it is coal, people don't realize this, but coal still accounts for over 30% of our total electricity output here in the United States. 30%. In some rural areas, it's even higher than that. On a global scale, coal still accounts for about 35 to 36% on a global scale. So coal is still around. It's still a huge part of the mix. So we talk about affordable energy and what that looks like. And we also talk about energy exploration and what that looks like and how that will help, okay, to cure this crisis that we have right now here in America. So also, the website includes some more of my op-eds. I've written probably about 30 or so articles and op-eds about this particular issue, and it also has some of my testimonies before Congress as well.
Now, I keep hearing you mention coal, and I remember that coal kind of, I don't want to say, I don't want to be silly and say it was a dirty word, but I
That's a good
remember
word.
people pushing it away and say it's in the past, but you keep mentioning it. So you're saying coal is not going anywhere, right? Is that
Coal
what
is not going anywhere. And so again, it's the narrative that's being driven. Coal, this is according to the EPA's website. Okay. You can go look it up. Coal still accounts again for about 30% of our total energy mix here in the United States and 35% on a global scale. And the other thing about coal, you got different types of coal. You need coal to make steel. So any type of building, anything
Okay.
that's going up, any type of structure, you're going to have to use coal to get to the steel part of it. So coal's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Are there any other upcoming speaking events or testimony that you have as it pertains to HR 4266 or as it pertains to energy poverty prevention?
Well, what we're doing right now, we're getting the word out to different people, different levels about HR 4266. And as I alluded to earlier, the main thing that we're actually doing right now is working to get that companion bill in the Senate. So that's going to be a huge once we get that. We've got a couple of senators that we're talking to right now who are very interested in this because, again, their constituents are struggling. And so anytime a bill like this can be brought forward, it makes the senator, it makes the congressman look good as well. So hopefully we're going to get those two pieces of bill combined and be able to put this legislation on President Biden's desk come January.
Okay, so we've got your prediction, and I'm truly hoping that it does not last into November, but you're not the only person that told me we're going to be riding this wave for a little bit.
It's going to be this way for quite some time. Again, as long as these policies continue to come out of Washington, D.C., the way that they are, and this aggressive green agenda that's being promoted from this administration, there will be no relief until after midterm elections.
And that's only based on if Americans vote on certain candidates, correct?
Again, exactly. Just like your other guest said, I will never tell anyone who to vote for. Never. But what I will say is take a look at each one of those candidates and see which one represents you and what you stand for and what you need in your life, and then make your decision. And it don't have to be on party, it's okay to vote for whoever, again, represents your best interests. Again, I won't tell you who to vote for, but certainly look at what you need in your life right now when you make that decision.
Derrick Hawley, founder of the Energy Poverty Prevention. I thank you so very much for being our guest tonight here on NNPA and Black Press USA's Fireside.
Is it over? It's
It
over?
is. I know. Can you believe it?
Wow.
We'll have to have you come back back once you tell us, oh my goodness, I got the companion bill. It's about to be signed. And then maybe you can tell people what that would mean to their lives. It's pretty interesting to see that, meet somebody who's, not a politician, but working on something that the politicians see would be beneficial to all Americans.
Yes. So I appreciate you having me. I really do. Thanks.
All right, no problem. Well, that'll do it for tonight's edition of Fireside Chat here on NNPA and Black Press USA. Until next week, everyone, God bless and goodbye.